Welcome to the Maitreya vidcast, lads and lassies. This is Departed coming at you.
Episode 2.
Oh, Electric Boogaloo.
Here you are. You're listening to It's like the Hyper Reels vidcast.
So Departed is like the complex one, the biggest riff salad, I think, of the bunch.
Yeah, she is the heftiest, has the biggest booty of any song on the album. It stood out to me, like all the specific like rhythmic changes in it. And I remember the build being pretty good as well, and that's how I came up with the chorus intro. Kind of, it sounded very godly.
The way we came up with the opening, I think we came up with it later on. I don't think it's what you originally had in the demo, but just the sharp snare at the beginning. Bah!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
such a good way to like, especially in the position we have it in the album after Catalyst. It's like Catalyst really goes pretty soft at the end, and then punch in the face.
all those choir parts. It's just like an 8-part vocal harmony. I think it was either like a pad or a synth, or maybe I even had it as like a synth choir to have that sort of like Star Wars Duel of the Fates kind of vibe.
Yeah,
It's like a mega stacked. And I think that's when we did the demos. We're like, what if we just put your voice as all of these layers, and we like layered every line.
Yeah, it might have even been a chicken or egg thing where like one of us had the idea to do the choral vocals, and then you put a bunch of synths in, and then we later like went back and actually did the choral vocals kind of thing.
Yeah, so the song was funny because Matt McCabe and we had this like phase. I don't remember when, but I think we were just like both bored, and we used to argue or debate or get in these like text fights, if you want to call them that.
Scuffles, you know.
It just felt like I think it happened like a couple times, and I know we've had like similar discussions along these lines as a band of like, what kind of direction do we want to go in, or like even like what covers are we gonna play when we used to do all those jam rock gigs. That used to be a big tension point.
That would always trigger
everybody.
This song sucks. I don't want to play this song.
Yeah. So, anyways, this song kind of came from one of those like tension discussions we had. The song name "Departed" is like a literal departure from like maybe there was a way we used to write together a lot. Like obviously the stuff on the first album was all very collaborative. I feel like it was all kind of like Matt and I in a room trading riffs, and that became most of the songs on the album.
Or sending the Guitar Pro back and forth.
Yeah, were kind of like the early days, and I feel like that wasn't really as much of a reality, and we'd have these like talks on like what kind of direction should we go in, and I think it was even because of doing some of those covers, like, oh, we should go for more like a rock thing, or more like a radio friendly thing, or something that's a bit like lighter or more
palatable in pop culture.
Yeah, especially coming from like our first album that's like borderline hardcore, metalcore, like, yeah. So it's ironic because I was on the side of having like a lighter sound, and he was like, no, we should go like heavier, like we're a metal band, like screw that shit. And then what I do is like, in spite, I write a song that ends up being like the darkest and heaviest song. So
and ends up being sick.
I guess he won that time. I also wanted it to be like a fuck you, to be like, well, I'm gonna write a song that's like heavy, and it's gonna be so hard that you can't play it. So, or not even that
hard I couldn't play it.
Or it was that, or it's like, I'm gonna make a song that's gonna take you a long time to figure out, kind of thing. So I was trying to like,
poor Liam's sitting here, not part of the feud. Like, what the hell did I do?
Breakneck speed,
collateral damage.
killing my wrist.
Yeah, you want to tell the audience how we recorded that check riff?
I don't. A cake can be sliced a lot of ways. I can play those hard riffs and swing my bass around, which I don't think a lot of people can do. So I can play them like 80% and be flailing my head around and swinging the bass around and doing jumps and shit. But then when it gets to the recording, it's like, okay, now I can't hide behind my hairography.
The other thing that made this song a total nightmare was in the actual recording of the song, I learned the hard way that when you record in Ableton, if you name
That's the worst.
if you name different channels by the same title, like we had just talked about, when I use Ableton, I have a tracking channel. So, and then I had all my groups. So I had like Liam's group tracking, Matt's group tracking, my group tracking. Turns out what Ableton does is it will overwrite or it won't organize what clips are by the number. So whatever happened, this happened for a couple other songs before I figured out what the problem was. I thought it was like my hard drive was glitching out, or there was like like the files were being lost, or it was something like that. But it turns out they were being overridden by the other takes. So this song, we had to redo parts like at least 2 more times because Liam's bass parts got messed up. I had to bring Matt back in to finish his leads after he was all done.
That's what I was gonna say. I remember like your parts were all good to go. And Matt's parts were the ones that got slid around to contribute to that crashing every time we were trying to record.
Yeah, I've also learned now that having, 20 MIDI channels of choirs and strings and vocoder effects running while you're trying to record your guitar parts is not a good idea for
remember when you would like press record and then we would be like, is it gonna crash? I don't know, guess we should just record. Let's just cross our fingers.
Or the worst is you get a good take and you're feeling really good and then
the glitches. Oh man, just the nightmares. But we did it. Somehow we did it.
Yeah, we made it through and we learned from it.
The hard way.
Yeah.
We don't do things the easy way around here. We like to figure out the hard way.
I like to make things as hard as we can.
Myself
before
I try to do
it. Maitreya the masochist, they call us.
Yeah.
So what's the song about? Why'd we write it? What's the concept?
All right. Everyone sit down, shut up, and listen to me gush about WestWorld.
It is time to talk about WestWorld, motherfucker.
So yeah, WestWorld has themes of AI, artificial intelligence, free will, big sci-fi themes. It was definitely a big inspiration on I know on Mark's end because he wrote a couple demos about it. One of them was called The Maze. One of my favorite metaphors for the show is, navigating yourself and your personality is like a maze. Each choice that you make can send you closer to the center or enlightenment or awareness, however you want to characterize it. Or your choices could send you spiraling to the edges, to madness or to, evil, or however you want to characterize, losing your way, right? So that was a really good metaphor. Kind of like Truman Show-esque, like we're living in the wrong world. But then in like season 2 with Akichida and the kind of Aboriginal kind of things, it pulls in like kind of spiritual belief of like this is not the ultimate reality. There is a reality above this one. I don't think I really used any quotes from it directly inside the song, except for Hell is Empty.
Don't you see? Hell is empty. And all the devils are here.
That was the one that all the demons are here. Hell is empty, all the demons are here.
Which is like a classic quote from literature, stuff like that.
To living the same life over and over again and learning each time, right? The kind of Groundhog Day thing they have going on in early the first season. And we make reference to sending them back, reboot anew, 1,000 deaths over and over again.
Yeah, I remember when we were originally talking about the concepts and stuff, we were talking about the idea of like a video game character being put through the ringer and then having to restart over and over and over again in a new reality or a new.
Yeah, I don't remember if that episode of Rick and Morty had come out by this point, but that one where Morty has the button, he can just go back every time.
Yeah, I remember we had like a couple of like sit down lyric writing sessions together where we got like really I think it's the first time I got to experience your full OCD tendencies.
Yeah,
where we storyboarded everything. It was like every riff had like, okay, what part is this in the overarching plot?
Yeah.
And then okay, now we have the plot, like what does each thing have to do? But I think that's what it paid off, because I think this song and other songs on the record, you did a good job of like figuring out what the instrumental is like,
trying to communicate or trying to like it's the
it's painting a picture and you're able to like see what that picture is and put words to what that is like taking you through.
Yeah, and I guess to use like the TV show metaphor, the soundscape that you create is kind of the environment or the set, right? And then the vocals themselves are kind of the characters or the narrative side of that the story that's being told within the environment. So to storyboard out each section and be like, okay, like I think Colonize was one of the ones that we did the most like that.
Yeah,
it's not on the album, but you know.
But you should check it out anyway.
So the chorus is probably where you sort of break away and talk more identity or more personally. I feel like everything
more
else
philosophy specifically.
Everything seems more narrative. But the chorus in particular seems like it's like your chance where you have your own sort of philosophical voice.
So the first two lines, "You were meant for more than this, the power inside will awaken," is the narrative tie-in for, you know, the spiritual journey to awakening that people are on. And then the second half of the chorus and the post-chorus is where I dip my toes into, you can see my philosophy roots kind of front and center. So autonomy is someone's ability to make rational choices for themselves. There's so many forms of like autonomy, but specifically relating that to love, which is something that I love to come back to all the time. I really wholesale believe that love is meaningless without a choice. And so, but the metaphor was actually about God, and belief in a deity. So God's love, it's one of the theistic kind of rationales or explanations for why we have free will with the existence of God, is that if God didn't give us free will and he just said, hey, love me, like, and that's how I'm creating you, then the love of the humans for their creator would be meaningless because they're not actually choosing it, they're forced to. So I'm kind of like tying this metaphor for belief in a deity into a bunch of other things like relationships and I guess like sci-fi kind of stuff as well. The next part of the chorus, the post-chorus, where does your meaning come from? Despair or transcendent hope.
I think that's my favorite line in the song, just the way you ended up being able to deliver it so like powerfully.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was one of my favorite lines from Camus. Albert Camus it's one of my favorite philosophical papers of all time, but it's a meditation on suicide, actually. And he kind of like frames people's kind of like attitude, I suppose. I'm probably butchering it, but like it's been a while since I've read it. But
it's a music podcast, not a not a philosophy podcast.
It's not a lecture, yeah. So go read the book if you want to know what he said. But yeah, he frames it in terms of despair and transcendent hope. So people are essentially misperceiving things or not understanding fully, and they have the tendency to either go to full despair, like suicide, right, would be the eventual, like I fully despair forever, which is I'm going to kill myself, or transcendent hope, which is a belief in anything that's above yourself, like that's not like in this reality, some kind of transcendent, like, oh, there's a heaven or a reincarnation or some kind of higher spiritual dimension. And so Camus essentially says that we're missing the mark with both of those things. We're missing the mark by despairing and giving into like kind of like an ultimate pessimism, or hoping for some kind of transcendent meaning for something outside of ourself to give us meaning. And I think what he says is the meaning is in the struggle. We have to like struggle in the middle. I also would parallel, you can give a little spoiler alert here, because spoiler alerts for season 2 of Westworld, but truth is invention in the sense that like the humans aren't even the most authentic, like you end up learning. The hosts are the most authentic. They're the only ones who can make a free choice, because Westworld's commentary on free will is saying the only entities that are free are the ones that can change their core drives, and humans cannot change their core drives, but hosts can. And so truth is invention in the sense that like the hosts are actually more real or more free than the guests at a certain point. And then the further revelation that it's not the hosts that are trying to become guests, right? That wasn't the point. The point of the creation, the secret project, was the guests wanted to become hosts, right? The guests wanted to be immortal. So just more kind of like, you invent your own truth and your own path. So yeah, pretty philosophically dense chorus there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we first sat down and tried to write the melody on that chorus?
I don't. What was it like?
We
take me back. Paint me a picture.
We had just started the song, right? Because the chorus comes in after, like, we probably had like the whole over and over again.
It's pretty close. It's a minute and a half in, so it's pretty soon into the song. Yeah,
that's pretty good for us, given the fact that we like to meander a lot.
Yeah. Riff salad.
Yes. Yeah, so we got through, where's that lyric chart? We got through like the whole sort of variations on the breakdown into the chorus.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the first time we actually really engaged in sort of the clean singing melody.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we gave it a pass, and it was just like, it was so bad. It was.
That's why I don't remember. I blocked it out.
It just like did not land. And I think I remember we like stopped, or like, it's not working. Like it was kind of the same thing when we were doing. Remember when we like did a whole session just trying to figure out the harmonies to do.
Yeah.
Where we just like spent like maybe like an hour or so on it, and it just was not.
Yeah.
We tried
just
so many different
not
things.
going anywhere.
We're trying so hard to get some good chords in there, and
it was like, so it was like the same thing when we wrote that original melody. Just like we got one, but it was like, dude, this doesn't sound very good.
Yeah.
So
it fits, but it's not good.
Which is kind of what I was saying before. Like, let there be no illusion to our fans that like I write shit sometimes, like they can't all be gems.
I mean, this is probably like one of the harder chord progressions, right? Like,
yeah, like
maybe I
harder
can
to
do
manage.
a little nerd out session on that on those chorus chords. I don't know if this guitar is gonna make it all the way up. Oh, it does. Cool.
Yeah, we can hear it.
So the chorus is not in like one key. I think we kind of bounce around between some modal sources, or just some like passing diminished things. So it's like starts off in B minor, or and then goes to E flat, which is like not in the right key, right? You wouldn't have a natural 3 major, so that's just like, it's something, I don't know.
It's a good interval though. It's a cool interval, right?
Yeah, it's probably acting as like, if there was such a thing, like 5 of 6, but there's not really going to 6, right? And that would be, I mean, that could be maybe a song. But anyways,
stay tuned.
Going to like a 3 chord, which is actually turning into like a.
Yeah, it's more like a stepping stone.
Like a half step or something?
No, like a passing tone.
Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like that. When you hit it, it sounds like, oh, that's the chord that it's going, and then it steps up. It's like, oh, that's where we were going.
Right. So I mean, I think of this as a diminished chord, but again, it could be dominant maybe. Back to like the 3, and then up to another minor, G minor, an inverted D chord. So that has a familiar sort of relationship going from like a G minor to a D.
Yeah.
And then it goes to an F, which is another modal thing, so we wouldn't have. It just doesn't quite. And then you got another diminished move.
Yeah, it's
Right?
that same passing tone that's like, and now we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here.
And then we just sort of like took that and arpeggiated it. Is that right?
Yeah, and it, because it does, the more complex you go with it, the more options it gives me in a sense. And I've kind of been looking at music that way more recently, listening to a couple like Jacob Collier videos, and like his absolutely insane like reharmonization theory is like, dude, you can make anything work if you're smart enough, you know. Like, you know,
just put fifths on fifths on fifths, or fourths on fourths on fourths, and you'll eventually make it sound good.
Yeah, but just like kind of like the theory that like if you have a progression in front of you and it sounds good, there is some sort of melody or whatever that like you can unlock if you're smart enough, or if you take long enough on it, right? And so it's just a matter of, you know, the cost benefit of like, like, is this song even worth it, or should we move on, or are resources better spent elsewhere, right? Like, and that's partly like that's partly on the songwriter as well, because like some of the songs that Mark has written, I can tell like the easier songs for me to write, I know are the better songs because they lend themselves to certain lines and things like that. And that's
Well,
not to say that
they trigger your heart, right? So then you
Mhm.
have something to say.
But then the
Not
flip
certain.
side of that as well is like to spend the effort on a song potentially like Departed, which may have been more difficult, or something may not have jumped out at me immediately, right? It still can end up be worth the effort, even if it takes more resources to do, right?
Yeah, it's sort of part of the insight as to why it took us 4 years to
To write an album.
to do a second album.
Another thing that I was happy about with that chorus was the way that I was able to emphasize the end of it with that transcendent hope line, and then so it starts off at the faster pace, right? So then I follow that, right? And then at the transcendent hope, I just hit the long, like, whole note.
Right.
Down, down,
I-
down, down. And then at the very end, it speeds right back up, and it carries it to the next part. It's able to like, I was able to emphasize my favorite part of of the chorus, and still keep the vibe going.
And that's the fun interplay of, you know, me writing vocals, and then you like, you know, taking that and like, you know, like modifying your bass part to be more supportive, or vice versa. And
Bass, but it would have been easy for me to just keep that pace up and just but it felt so much better to like allow that to like use the word that we use all the time, to bloom there. Wow.
Yeah, plus he was going he's going like more of a halftime thing,
time
like
it
he
there,
picks it up. So again, it's that sort of interplay between the drums and the bass is sort of like the unsung hero of those sections.
Yeah, definitely. And a note on, because we talked a lot about the lyrical kind of content. A note on the actual melody and voicings of this was, I actually have pretty strong roots in musicals and opera and things like that. And this is like a section I really wanted to push that forward as much as possible, and give it like a real, just like operatic, like, well.
Yeah.
There is also those through lines of the vocoder being like, again, like, oh, a nod to being part robot or part,
Definitely.
non-human. Like, is it? And I remember Zayn had a version of the mix that was like, the vocoder was like in your face, and as much as I loved it, it was just like, Oh, it shouldn't be the lead. It has to be in the background.
We need it to be a little more subtle, thanks.
Whatever happened when I put those chords in, I think I pitch shifted the chords down and then create like the most bomb harmony that we couldn't recreate. It was just like, I don't know, something magical happened by accident.
Did we keep? I can't remember, and y'all are gonna roast me for not even remembering. But did we keep that there's something wrong with the server part in the song, or was that only left on the cutting room?
No, we glitched. We did all those effect channels. Remember, we recorded like 4 or 5 takes.
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
they're all sort of spliced and all those grain delays and whatnot.
Because I must be mixing it up with because I for all you viewers to know, I'm the meme lord, and I love injecting kind of like interesting kind of things in there, and inevitably some of them get shot down. So
Inevitably.
Yeah, my personal favorite part of the song, I'm kind of just scrolling through the lyrics, is labeled as Riff 6. You know?
Is it Riff 6 or Verse 6?
Yeah. It's the delete, get to the failsafe, turn off, reset, upgrade our systems, augment. And I think speaking to the rhythmic kind of side of why I like this song, sections like that bring out the kind of like BT Bam prog head in me, and I'm just like, oh, let's get some like repetitive but kind of like vocals that really hit the spot on stuff. So
there's definitely an evolution or something that I've seen in whether it's local bands or bands we go and see when like the whole analyst leaders and contortionists, but it seems like there's there's 2 schools of thought. There's like the one school of thought that's like, let's make an insanely complex main layer. So they focus on a complicated riff. And usually I found as part of like my evolution is that usually a really, really complex main layer isn't as interesting as a simple enough initial layer with like a third or second and third layer on top. I find if you go in too heavy-handed with your first theme, it doesn't usually let a lot of room for the other elements to bloom. I would say this is a point in my writing style where you do see a lot of like the main line being like really complicated, and there's no room right there. There's no
tech riff. There's no room for another layer.
There's no room on top of this to put like a nice counter line, right? But like on something more like the chorus, like if you come up with like a simple enough harmonic progression. Okay, now you can add a key layer, you can add a vocal layer, you can have a melody. There's room for other elements to sort of come in. Like you can have drum and bass interplay. There's all these. Now everything's kind of gone from 1-to-1 main layer. Everything has to sort of work together in order for it to work. There's no room for elevation. Yeah, I guess we just have to sort of capture that outro.
We can just even like have this in it.
We don't know how the fuck that ended. Yeah, so we are Maitreya. The single's called Departed. We're super excited about it, and we're glad you guys are listening to it. So enjoy.
Check it out on Spotify, YouTube, Bandcamp, anywhere where you stream stuff.
Come to my house.
Come to my house.
Tell me how good the song is.
Better yet, we'll come to your house.
and chill.
Yeah. Oh, leave your windows open and we will enter your own.
The trademark Maitreya Tooth Fairy will visit you. Is it ending? It's not ending!